Welcome to TradeTheNBA.com. This is John. This report is for the 13th of February, and, well, the continuation. So we had that steel crossing above the red and making its move, well, pretty much at the beginning of the day, as we could see that we were starting from that support of the 76%, right about the 27. We talked about the 27.35. And then, of course, right above that, nothing until the 62, and then beyond that is just 28. So it's one of those where you get that meteoric rise. And what we've been following is this continuing gold rise in the shakeout, and the fact that until that Azure actually meets it, you're really looking at a continuation move. And so even when we had this little dip right here, we recognized that that was still going to continue, and now they're just about getting ready to meet. So this could be that earliest signal that, okay, potentially has had enough. But we could see, as we're looking at right here, you got cyan under red, always a buy. In fact, if we look at our Opus, it took, what did we get? 27.40.50 from 27.03. I believe that will put us at all-time equity highs. We'll let it calculate right there. It does. So pushing that envelope ever higher. Not bad from a periodic standpoint. Pretty decent. If we look at it from an annualized basis, certainly not bad when the first part of the year is producing that kind of a return. I think we're still in the to-profit factor here overall, so good stuff. From a 50K standpoint, well, we'll get to that one in a minute. Let's just go ahead and go through the rest of it here first. NASDAQ, like I said before, it had already reached that plateau, so as soon as we get into that first dipping of the shakeout, particularly if it's lower than the previous one, we've already seen that we're finally getting potentially overdone here with the algo push, and you'll notice that the NASDAQ is almost already at its 100% number. So it's kind of interesting to see that nice little rebound off of the lows. Not too much of a shock, however, still in continuation. It was the move above the steel here that's helping, but without the complete reset of orange going below, it's going to have some issues. And gold, as we're seeing that China's been buying up all this gold, and no surprise, we've been talking about that for forever. From a 5K standpoint, it was long, all day long, cyan under red. The only time you even look at it when this configuration happens here, where you get the crossovers, and then you can just look and say, okay, am I still rising shakeout? Yes, still rising gold. Okay, ignore that one. Then we can go to where the DOC spread took place, which started right over here, and that happened well above the plus 15, 13.5 here for the magenta above the shakeout line right here. So not a whole lot to worry about in that particular case. And then finally, when we did get the full-on dip, we had our steel, of course, coming from below, and that happened right at the peak low and right at the 27.29 algo retest to it, and then boom, cyan back under red. And then we started producing a couple more of these DOC spreads, produced a little bit more. Still, again, you knew you were fighting long odds with magenta over the plus 15, but it doesn't mean if you don't capture it early enough, like when it first creates that spread and you're above the ABM gold, the best you're hoping for in a lot of these cases is either dip to the green ABM. Really lucky you're going to get to a 50%. That's usually like the highlight move, particularly in an up run like this. I mean, normally you finish towards the highs of the day when you have this kind of a move. Plus, no real news reason to be bearish, generally speaking. Of course, they're all crediting it with the no Russia collusion thing, blah, blah. That's all just a bunch of nonsense. I think the fact that Trump attorney with the Mueller may not even do a report thing really prompted a bit more enthusiasm. But there's just a lot of money on the sidelines that's getting caught in the fact that the market keeps moving higher despite the prognostications that everything is going to fall apart, and now they're getting left behind yield-wise, and so they got to get back in. That's really what forces things when you're wrong and people have to move back in place to get caught back up. So latest push here right up to the 2752 algo, and we're kind of flatlining right across that. You may even see a potential, but you're looking at this, zero move with the red DOC above zero and actually moving towards 7.5, so it's going to have to really roll over quite a bit before you see anything. You can see that when it did break the zero, which was right back over here, that's when you actually got a full push lower. So that's kind of a clear indication of the significance of that breach level there. If we look at the, well, actually, it's not a bad one to put in here. I'm going to put that back up for you. It's a 50K representing the old paint bar. Just to give you a view of how that looks. Step down. So that right, when we look at the adjustment view, it's a little bit cleaner. We get right down from the bottom and it stays clean all the way through. And I'm working on the Opus adjustments to it right now that will adjust for those modifications, and that should change dramatically how it behaves. So I think that will be interesting to see in real terms. So very excited about that. And until anything special happens, we're just going to continue to follow where it is. I think the play now between these algos really becomes the real impetus to fill back in some of the positive extremes you've got between this 52 and 29 range. But more likely, we're headed to the upside of the scale. I don't think that 50K had produced a new equity high yet. From a return wise, quite nice as far as that goes. It's almost back to the equity high there, pretty close, but with a much demonstrably lower profit factor. That's going to change dramatically because in the adjustments that I did for this, I removed roughly 100 plus of what the losers would be simply by not taking some of those more suspect longs, and by reducing that, just that alone will skyrocket the profit factor up near the 2, so it's going to be a significant change. So looking forward to showing that one off. As always though, trade well, and I will put up anything relevant. It was just too boring, nothing happened with any of this. Fine, we've got all these positive extremes, but I didn't have any sell signals that were generated that were going to suggest that we would see any of that filled back in. So until we do, at least we have them and we know what they are, and we can go from there. As always, trade well. Talk to you later.